Hello viewers, Namaskar. Today is Vasant Panchami. It's a very auspicious day, very good day. We Hindus do Saraswati Puja on this day, and I did my puja this morning, asked for blessings from Goddess Saraswati. And in Vedic Jyotish, the planet that closely represents all the qualities that Devi Saraswati blesses us with, like music, art, knowledge, divine knowledge, wisdom, beauty, all these things are represented by planet Venus. And planet Venus is now exalted in transit. It is going over the Pisces sign, which is the sign of its exaltation. And it is closely conjunct with Rahu. So I decided to upload this video today about Rahu. And we'll talk about Rahu in the first house and Ketu in the seventh house. And so let's start this video with divine blessings of Goddess Saraswati. May Goddess Saraswati bring knowledge to all of us. So what is Rahu and Ketu? As I mentioned in my previous video, that these two are not really planets, although they are addressed as planets. These are the nodal points where the orbit of Earth around the Sun intersects the orbit of Moon around the Earth. And one is called North Node, which is Rahu, and the other is called South Node, which is Ketu. Now, if we look at the position of Rahu and Ketu, they are exactly opposite, 180 degrees opposite. Wherever Rahu is, just 180 degrees opposite to that would be Ketu. So house-wise, always Rahu and Ketu will be in opposite houses. And there are stories that sort of define the nature of these two planets. I'm not going into those stories. They are very vividly described in Puranas. But for the purpose of our understanding, let us begin by saying that these are very misunderstood entities. As I mentioned in my last video, that these are quite often seen as very bad planets or bad influences that sort of like gives a bad name to these entities. And in Vedic Jyotish, there are two different classes of planets. One class is called natural benefics. The other class is called natural malefics. Now, Rahu and Ketu are natural malefics. That is where the misconception begins. Because it's a natural malefic, it is understood that it is only going to give us bad effects. And it is not that. It is just because good or bad is our own mental construct. We are always looking for whatever is convenient to us, what is a pleasurable experience. We sort of define that as good, and whatever is challenging, whatever is pushing us towards learning a lesson, we call that as bad. So from that perspective, yes. But if we step out of that conditioning, then we'll be able to understand what Rahu and Ketu really represent and why they are there in a horoscope. So today we're going to talk about the probabilities that might exist if a horoscope has Rahu in the first house and Ketu just opposite to it in the seventh house. Now, what is Rahu? Rahu is sort of the expansive, the ambitious, the go-getter kind of energy. And wherever Rahu is, that house, a person will always feel less than in that house. And it will give that person a drive to improve on that house. And Ketu is just opposite. So my personal belief is that we cannot actually understand Rahu and Ketu if we don't consider them together, because there will be a lot of videos out there. You will see people are talking about Rahu in different houses, Ketu in different houses. But I think it is much simpler and better to understand the influence of Rahu and Ketu if we consider them together and opposite to each other, because you will see that Rahu and Ketu are complementary to each other, and one is incomplete without the other. Because the story goes from the Puranas that Rahu is the detached head and Ketu is the body, headless body. So together they make a complete individual. But if the head is severed, then head itself is incomplete without the body, and the body is also incomplete without the head. So when we are looking at a horoscope, Rahu Ketu is always opposite, and they form an axis, and that axis is the karmic axis of that individual. That individual will have to pay off karmic debt using the opposite qualities of those two houses. And in a horoscope, always the opposite houses signify opposite things. So for example, first house is our self, and the seventh house, just opposite to first house, is other people. So it's sort of like a mirror image. Therefore, if Rahu is in the first house and Ketu is in the seventh house, that will represent opposing urges that will always prevail in that individual. That individual will always feel a push and pull between these two houses. So Rahu in the first house will draw attention to the self. That person will always feel that I am not enough. I have to improve myself more. I have to rise up in my status. This is whatever I am currently is not enough. So that person will be always focused on self-improvement, personal branding, their ego, their identity, their personality. They will be constantly worried about those areas being not enough, not meeting their own expectations. So they'll be dissatisfied from the first house, from the way they feel about themselves. Now here's the caveat. When a child is born, that child does not know who they are, but they get to know about themselves from the people around them. People around them tell them, oh, you look so beautiful. Oh, you are so intelligent. So gradually these feelings develop within the child that, oh, I am a beautiful person, I'm an intelligent person, but that is coming from the people around that child. That is the social conditioning. So the identity, the sense of self that we develop is sort of dependent on the seventh house, the people, other people. So first house, ourself, our own understanding of ourselves sort of is conditioned. We do not know our true self. The way we think of ourselves is sort of built upon the kind of people we are surrounded with and what they tell us about ourselves. So Rahu in the first house is also having a seventh aspect on the seventh house. So this person will always see more in other people. This person will feel that, oh, the person I'm looking at, that person has more than me. That person is more wealthy, that person has a better job, that person has a bigger car, that person has a better house than me. So I need to improve on that. I need to be better than that person. So always seventh house is a reference for this person. Always other people becomes reference for their own sense of self-worth, and they keep working on it. Whenever they achieve something, they're still dissatisfied. They think, oh, this is not enough, I need to do more and more and more. And Rahu also has this energy of not being satisfied. That is fine, but they will also inspire us to adopt ways that are outside the traditional norm. So it's like in Sanskrit it's called sam dam danda bhed. Like they will try to achieve by hook or by crook. That is Rahu. The energy of Rahu is always sort of like going around the traditional path and trying to achieve it by any means that is possible. Even it pushes one person to achieve their goals by unethical means, by immoral means. So that is Rahu. In the first house, it will always try to make that person focused on oneself at the expense of his or her relationships, because seventh house is also relationships. Those relationships which are not blood relationships, which are like marriage or partnerships in business, which are legal bonds that we make, the contracts that we make with other people. That kind of relationships are seen from the seventh house. So when Rahu is in the first house, that person will focus on oneself at the expense of those relationships. And Ketu is sitting in the seventh house. Ketu is completely opposite to Rahu. If Rahu is attachment, Ketu is detachment. Ketu inspires us to step out of our social conditioning. Ketu inspires us to look inward and try to find out our true self. And Ketu in the seventh house signifies that this person will be detached from his relationships. This person will feel sort of like a disinterest in forming meaningful relationships. And if a relationship is formed, then that relationship will not be paid attention to. No time to nurture the relationship. Most of the time is going to focus on their own self. So that is what Rahu and Ketu in first and seventh house actually means. Now, this is a very general understanding. This will be colored with the position of Rahu and Ketu, which sign they're in. So the significations of that sign will have to be considered. And also the nakshatra, the degree at which Rahu is sitting in a particular house, which nakshatra it is sitting on, the lord of that nakshatra will have to be considered, which house that nakshatra lord is sitting, the dignity of that lord planet, whether it is exalted or debilitated, friend sign or enemy sign, how powerful that nakshatra lord is in Navamsha. Also, we have to consider the sign dispositor of Rahu, which sign it is in, where the sign lord has gone. So all these different things have to be considered, and same for Ketu as well. So this is the most basic understanding, and this may manifest in a very general way, but we also have to consider the probabilities of the sign and nakshatra to make a better, a high resolution understanding of the position of Rahu and Ketu in a horoscope. So I always say that this is not like something written on the wall. This is only probability that may manifest. Now what we need to do is we need to look at a horoscope, look at the position of Rahu and Ketu, And then we need to verify by looking at the life of that individual, be it ourselves or our family members or friends or whatever horoscope we're looking at. We need to examine whether, how much, to what degree these probabilities are getting manifest. So that is how Jyotish should work. Now, the push and pull factor will remain in that individual, irrespective of the sign or nakshatra or all the other factors that I mentioned. These are layers and layers of probabilities. So the more deeper we go, the more precise our predictions would become. But that not necessarily does not necessarily mean that is how it will be manifest, because in manifestation of a certain event or certain probability, another very important factor comes in, which is the personal karma of that individual. So if we constantly work towards a certain thing, that becomes our karma, and that consequences get blended into Rahu and Ketu. So it's said that they're malefic because they give these kind of energies, they inspire us to work in ways which would not give us a good consequence. But Rahu is also out of the box thinking. So on a positive note, you can consider that a person whose Rahu is very dominant, that person will have very innovative ideas. They can be great innovators. Ketu, on the other hand, gives spiritual growth. Detachment is necessary to get out of the social conditioning, to understand that material objects or physical, in the physical realm, the kind of connections we develop, the relationships we develop, they are basically part of a bigger drama that we are playing a role in. And we ourselves internally, who we are, the understanding of that will liberate us from continuously playing this drama. And Ketu helps us to do that. So Ketu is also known as Moksha Karaka. So Ketu gives us liberation. But Ketu also gives us, Ketu signifies height. Ketu signifies flag. So if Ketu is in good dignity or under influence of good planets, Ketu can make a person rise in their career. They can achieve high positions in sort of like government job or something like that. Ketu can really help to get recognition because Ketu is flag. Rahu, on the other hand, if Rahu is in good dignity, Rahu can also give a lot of name and fame, recognition as well. So it all depends on the position and the other high resolution understanding of exactly where Rahu is placed, which sign it is placed. Is it the air sign, fire sign, earth sign, and which nakshatra it is placed, what kind of nakshatra that is. All these things will have a role in determining what kind of actual manifestation these two planets will have in a birth chart. But it is definite that that person will have to pay off the karmic debt in this life on those two houses. So that is definite. That person will feel a push and pull. Like first house Rahu, seventh house Ketu, person will always feel that they are more engaged in their own personal sphere at the expense of their relationships. And he or she will learn a lesson in this life that he or she has to establish a balance between the two. And that is the karma, that is the karmic debt that person has to pay off in this lifetime. The more the person will focus on themselves, the more their relationships will suffer. And when the relationship will suffer, they will focus on the relationship at the expense of themselves. So their own identity, their own personal growth will suffer. So this push and pull will continue throughout the life. When it will be maximally felt, when that person is running a dasha, major period of Rahu or Ketu, or any planet that is forming a connection with Rahu and Ketu, or their dispositor's dasha, all those things will trigger events regarding the first house and seventh house. And those events will be significant. So Rahu Ketu axis, wherever that axis falls on a birth chart, is a karmic axis. So events that have major consequences will happen during the dasha periods of these planets. And major consequences means like changing the course or the direction of life will happen when that person is running a dasha of either Rahu or Ketu, or their dispositors, the sign lords, or the nakshatra lords, or any planet which is forming a connection with Rahu and Ketu by aspect or conjunction. So those events will be major events changing the course of the life of that individual. But throughout the life of the individual, that person will feel the push and pull between those two houses, the first house and seventh house. So remember this, bottom line is that person, if focuses on his own personal growth, his relationships will suffer. And if the person is too obsessed with his relationships, then his own personal growth will suffer. So he has to establish a balance between the two. That is the remedy. That is the remedy. The remedy of Rahu is Ketu, and remedy of Ketu is Rahu. Rahu represents material, Ketu represents spiritual. So if a person is too focused on his material needs and desires, then his spiritual growth will suffer. And if the person is completely detached from all the material needs and desires and focus on Ketu, okay, I'm gonna do some sadhana and liberate myself, I'm gonna start walking on the spiritual path, then what will happen? His material life will suffer. His job, his family, his earnings, his wealth, his possessions, all those things will suffer. So to live a balanced life, that person has to balance out those two aspects of life. And those two aspects will be manifest in those two houses, first house and seventh house in this case. So that's all for now today. I realize that if I make short videos, people will be able to watch it till the end. And so in the next video, I'll talk about Rahu and Ketu in second house and eighth house. Second house Rahu and eighth house Ketu. So stay tuned for that. Until then, if you like the content I'm making, please like my video. Please also share with friends and family so that they also get to watch these videos and my videos gain more visibility. And please subscribe to my channel. This channel is very new, and the more subscribers I get, the more inspiration I will feel to make more videos. And please let me know in your comments what you feel and also what you want to watch more, and I'll make videos on those things. Thank you so much for watching, and please hit the bell icon and so that you get notifications of my next video beforehand. So thank you again, and I love you all, and may Devi Saraswati bless us all. Thank you.